Good afternoon, children.
Good afternoon,
ma'am.
Hope you are remembering what we were discussing. Today is the previous two periods. Sefi, what did we discuss in the last period? Which process we were explaining?
urine formation,
Formation of urine. And two steps we discussed. Which are those two steps?
glomerular filtration,
Glomerular filtration
and
and
reabsorption.
tubular
Reabsorption.
reabsorption. So let us continue with the same topic. It's okay, Meenakshi, I saw your message. So next, we'll continue with reabsorption. We already started with the second step, that is reabsorption. And hope you remember what we learned about loop of Henle. Loop of Henle is between proximal convoluted tubule and distal convoluted tubule. And loop of Henle is a hairpin shaped structure. And in loop of Henle, minimum reabsorption takes place. When compared to other regions, minimum reabsorption is taking place in loop of Henle. And loop of Henle helps in maintaining high osmolarity. Osmolarity means the solute concentration, or higher osmolarity means higher concentration of solutes. Low osmolarity means low concentration of solutes. So since minimum reabsorption is taking place in loop of Henle, it helps in maintaining high solute concentration in medullary interstitial fluid. Medullary interstitial fluid means, you know, the cortex and the medulla. So in between the cells of medulla, a fluid is present. Space in between the medullary cells, the cells in the medulla are filled with a fluid. You call it as medullary interstitial fluid. Since there is less reabsorption or minimum reabsorption taking place in loop of Henle, it helps in maintaining high osmolarity or a high solute concentration in medullary interstitial fluid. And this is having great significance because the main purpose is to reabsorb water and to concentrate urine or to concentrate glomerular filtrate. So when the medullary interstitial fluid is having high solute concentration, what will happen? From where to where water moves, children? In which direction water will be moving? It will move from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. So high osmolarity means high solute concentration. So water concentration will be, the more the solutes, lesser will be the amount of water molecules. So in the medullary region, if the solute concentration is more in the medullary region, if solute concentration is more, water will be reabsorbed into the medulla. Okay, understood? It won't be forming, or it will not reach the collecting duct as urine. So the more the concentration of solutes in the interstitial fluid of medulla, so it can promote better reabsorption of water. I'll repeat it once again. In loop of Henle, this one is known as loop of Henle. So in the loop of Henle, minimum reabsorption takes place. As a result, there'll be high solute concentration or high osmolarity in the medullary interstitial fluid. And the descending limb, you know that Henle's loop is having two limbs, descending and ascending limb. See here, I'll mark it here. This one is the descending limb going downwards. The one which is going upwards, that is ascending limb, and this one is the descending limb. Descending limb, where the flow of fluid through that will be in the downward direction, and in ascending limb it will be moving in the upward direction. And this descending limb of loop of Henle will be permeable to water. Means it will allow the movement of water, but impermeable to electrolytes. Salts and other substances will not be able to move through the descending limb, whereas water is allowed to move. So as a result, what will happen? The water present in the descending limb can move out, but the solute cannot move. Electrolytes cannot move. As a result, the glomerular filtrate gets concentrated in the descending limb. Are you getting the point? See, you know, in loop of Henle, there is a descending and ascending limb. So this is the descending limb. This one is the ascending limb. And this region, that is the descending limb, is permeable to water, permits the movement of water, but impermeable to electrolytes. So salts and other substances inside are not permitted to move out, whereas water is free to move. As a result, inside the descending limb, water becomes less because water is allowed to move, whereas the electrolytes will be retained, solutes will be retained within that. So as a result, in the descending limb, the filtrate will get concentrated. Is that clear? You
Yes,
want me to
ma'am.
repeat?
Ma'am, can you repeat the first point?
First point. So minimum reabsorption is taking place in the loop of Henle. So minimum reabsorption means that will promote high osmotic water reabsorption is minimum reabsorption is taking place. So as a result, what happens is in the medullary interstitial fluid, solute concentration will be more. Solute concentration becomes high. So when the solute concentration is high, you call it as osmolarity. The more the solute concentration, the more will be the osmolarity. Loop of Henle is having two limbs, descending and ascending limb. Descending limb, permeable to water. Water is free to move out. So water can move, whereas solutes will be retained. Electrolytes will be retained. As a result, as the glomerular filtrate is moving through the descending limb, it becomes concentrated. Whereas as it moves through the ascending limb, just the opposite happens. Ascending limb is impermeable to water. Water cannot move. Whereas electrolytes are free to move. So then what happens? The solute gets, the filtrate gets diluted. So through the descending limb, when it is moving, as it moves down the as it moves down the descending limb, it is getting concentrated. But as it moves up the ascending limb, it is getting, the glomerular filtrate is getting diluted. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Descending limb, permeable. Remember this because again you're going to apply the same concept when we learn the concentration of urine. Descending limb, permeable to water, whereas impermeable to electrolytes. So as the glomerular filtrate passes through the loop of Henle, the glomerular filtrate becomes concentrated. Concentrated means water content less, solutes more. But as it moves up the ascending limb, being impermeable to water and permeable to electrolytes, the solute, the filtrate will get more diluted. The water will not move out, whereas solutes are moving out. So as a result, the filtrate inside the ascending limb gets more and more diluted. In the distal convoluted tubule, conditional reabsorption of sodium and water takes place. You know what is distal and proximal convoluted tubule? So in distal convoluted tubule also reabsorption. So we are discussing about the reabsorption taking place in different parts of nephron. So already we discussed what is happening in the loop of Henle. And when it reaches the distal convoluted tubule, there conditional reabsorption means under certain specified conditions, reabsorption, depending upon the concentration or depending upon the requirements, conditional reabsorption of sodium and water can take place in distal convoluted tubule. Now the next part is collecting duct. So loop of Henle we learned in detail, and in the distal convoluted tubule, water and sodium can be reabsorbed, but it is conditional reabsorption. Depending upon some certain conditions or certain specified situations, this will happen. Now collecting duct. Collecting duct position, we have said its location, we have said it will be extending from the cortex into the inner regions of medulla. And from the collecting duct, large amount of water will be reabsorbed. So once glomerular filtrate reaches collecting duct, a major share of the water will be reabsorbed because the urine needs to be concentrated, because otherwise there'll be too much loss of water. You know that 180 liters of glomerular filtrate is being formed in our body, but that much water or that much glomerular filtrate, if it is getting converted to urine, there'll be dehydration, so much of water loss from our body. But by the time it forms urine, 99% of the water will get reabsorbed. So from the collecting duct, a major share of the water will be reabsorbed, so that before it is released from our body, the urine or the glomerular filtrate gets highly concentrated to form the urine. It also permits the passage of small amounts of urea into the medullary interstitium, the region, the space or the cells in between the medulla, to keep up the osmolarity. So in the beginning, when we discussed about the reabsorption of different substances, I told you that passive reabsorption of urea and water takes place. Water as well as nitrogenous waste. So that time I had told you why these our purpose of excreting or filtering out blood was to remove the nitrogenous waste from our body. Then why it should be reabsorbed? The major amount of nitrogenous waste is not getting reabsorbed. Just a small amount of urea will be reabsorbed and it will be sent to the medullary interstitium. And that is to maintain the osmolarity, the solute concentration, because only if the solute concentration in the medullary interstitium is more, water can be reabsorbed from the renal tubule, because water always moves from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. High concentration of water means there will be less amount of solute. So when the medullary interstitium is having less concentration of water, because of the more amount of or more concentration of solute, water can be easily reabsorbed from the renal tubule into the medullary interstitium. So in order to maintain the solute concentration or osmolarity, some amount of urea also will be reabsorbed from the collecting duct, or once the glomerular filtrate reaches the collecting duct. I'll repeat the points quickly once again. In distal convoluted tubule, sodium and water can be reabsorbed, and that is conditional reabsorption. Under certain specified conditions, it will happen. And then comes the collecting duct, and collecting duct will promote the reabsorption. From the collecting duct, a lot of water, major share of water will be reabsorbed, forming concentrated urine. And from the collecting duct, a small amount of urea also will be reabsorbed into the medullary interstitium, or the cells in between the medulla, so that the osmolarity, the solute concentration, can be maintained. This maintenance of solute concentration is very important in order to promote the reabsorption of water. Okay. Any clarification, any explanation?
And this last point you explain, can you explain once?
Like small amount of urea. See here, you can see from the, just a minute. Here you can see small amount of urea is also being, this is medullary interstitial cells. Okay. So those cells surrounding the loop of Henle or in the medullary region. So urea, small amount of all these substances, urea, all these were in the glomerular filtrate. But once this glomerular filtrate is in the collecting duct, a small amount of urea is being reabsorbed into the medullary interstitium. Why? Because this adds to the osmolarity, solute concentration. When the concentration of solute is more, when solute concentration is more, water concentration will be less. Am I right?
Yes,
When the
ma'am.
solute concentration is more, water concentration will be less. So this will promote the reabsorption of water. You know that water will move from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. So here when the solute or osmolarity is maintained, more the amount of solute, lesser the water concentration. So water can be effectively reabsorbed into the medullary interstitium. So in order to keep up that solute concentration or osmolarity to facilitate reabsorption of water, a small amount of urea is being reabsorbed. Okay, it will not cause any harm. This is just a small amount to maintain the solute concentration. Okay, Nandana?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, so about medullary interstitial fluid, it's the fluid inside.
Ah, yes, the space, the fluid present in between the cells.
Okay,
In
ma'am.
the space in between these cells will be filled with a fluid.
Okay, ma'am.
Now, next is tubular secretion. So we learned about formation of glomerular filtrate, glomerular filtration, then reabsorption, then tubular secretion. Proximal convoluted tubule and distal convoluted tubule both will maintain the ionic and acid base balance. Ionic balance means mainly sodium and potassium balance, and acid base. The normal pH will be maintained by the cells of proximal and distal convoluted tubule. How? By selectively secreting certain substances. So maintaining the osmolar, you know that kidney plays a very, very important role, not only in excretion. Excreting nitrogenous waste is one function. Apart from that, it also plays a major role in maintaining the osmotic concentration, maintaining the concentration of solute and water in the body, salts and water in the body. So maintaining the osmotic concentration in our body is also a function of kidney. So cells of proximal and distal convoluted tubule, they play a very important role in maintaining the balance of ions and pH of the body fluids. How? By selectively secreting hydrogen, potassium, ammonium into the filtrate, into the glomerular filtrate, and by absorbing bicarbonate ions from it. So secrete some substances and they absorb certain other substances like bicarbonates, and all these are meant to maintain a proper, because if your body has to function, a normal pH of the body fluid should be maintained. And you know what happens once the sodium ions level is too low? It can be very dangerous. You might have heard some people, they get admitted to the hospital when the sodium or potassium level goes below the normal. High and low both are dangerous. So it is the kidney, or our kidneys help in maintaining a normal sodium potassium balance, pH balance. All that is carried out by a kidney. To facilitate it, the distal and proximal convoluted tubule, the cells of this part of the renal tubule, they help in maintaining the ionic and acid base balance of a body fluids by selectively secreting certain substances and absorbing certain other substances, and they bring about a proper balance of sodium potassium ions and acid and base balance. Okay, because only if the, you know, in different parts of a body or different pH has to be maintained to facilitate the function of different enzymes involved. So enzymes which are involved in different metabolic activities of a body, they need a optimum pH. If it fluctuates from that, your body functions cannot function properly. Okay, so it is the cells of proximal and distal convoluted tubule. They secrete hydrogen ions, potassium, ammonia, etc. into the glomerular filtrate, and they absorb bicarbonate ions, and thereby they help in maintaining the balance of ions and the pH of our body fluids. Collecting duct also, not only proximal and distal convoluted tubule, but our collecting duct also helps in maintaining pH and ionic balance of blood by secreting potassium and hydrogen ions. So what you need to know is that the different regions of the renal tubule, proximal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubule, as well as collecting duct. They play a very important role in maintaining the pH and ionic balance of our body fluids. They selectively secrete some substances, absorb certain other substances, and they help in maintaining the optimum or the normal pH and ionic concentration in the body fluids. So that process is known as tubular secretion. So there are 3 steps: glomerular filtration, reabsorption, tubular reabsorption, and tubular secretion. Why it is necessary to secrete these substances by proximal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubule, and collecting duct? Only if selective secretion of certain ions and absorption of certain other ions take place, the normal pH and ionic balance of our body fluids can be maintained. Are you getting the point?
Yes, ma'am.
Only Nandana has joined. All others have gone. I can hear only from Nandana. What about others? That means others have been understood. See, children, only if you respond, I can understand. But if you have doubts, stop me in between. Are you following, Gayatri?
Yes, ma'am.
No doubts.
By far is fine, ma'am. This
Yes?
much is fine. It's
And this
fine,
much is
fine.
okay. Okay. So we'll continue. Now next is concentration of the filtrate. Glomerular filtrate is getting concentrated as it is moving through different regions of the loop of Henle or different parts of the renal tubule. As it moves, it gets concentrated. So we'll come to the concentration of the filtrate in the next class because it takes some time for explaining, and I thought I'll take the remaining part. Regulation of the kidney functions we'll start, and concentration of the urine by counter current mechanism. Tomorrow we'll next class, I think tomorrow we'll have a period, so I'll explain counter current mechanism by means of which urine is concentrated in our next class. So I'll be moving on to the next topic, regulation of kidney function. So before that, which are the 3 steps involved in the formation of urine? Malavika, the 3 main steps?
Glomerular filtration,
Hmm.
reabsorption, tubular secretion.
Tubular secretion. Which parts of the renal tubule are involved in tubular secretion, Gayatri? Which are the regions that are involved in tubular secretion?
Proximal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubule, and collecting that.
What is the purpose of, or why it is very important? What is the significance of tubular secretion? Anna, why this tubular secretion or secretion of these ions should take place? What is its significance?
It should maintain the ionic and acid
Base balance. Okay. To maintain the ionic balance and pH balance or acid base balance of our body fluids. Okay. So regulation of kidney function. How the functions of kidneys are being regulated. And one by one, we'll see the different mechanisms by means of which kidney functions are regulated. It is done by a hormonal feedback mechanism. So endocrine system plays a major role in regulating the kidney function. So it is done by a hormonal feedback mechanism involving hypothalamus, JGA, juxtaglomerular apparatus, and heart. You know that these 3 structures are having endocrine functions. Hypothalamus, you have already learned under endocrine system. And morning we discussed that JGA, juxtaglomerular apparatus, is also having endocrine function. It produces a hormone known as, which hormone it produces, children? Renin. And heart. Heart also, we learned, apart from the major endocrine glands, there are certain other organs in our body with endocrine function. There we discussed about heart. Hope you're remembering about the hormonal function of heart. Atrial natriuretic factor. Are you remembering, which we discussed in the previous chapter? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now moving on to the next point, changes in the blood volume, body fluid volume, and ionic concentration will activate osmoreceptors in the body. The receptors which respond to the changes in the osmotic pressure, these are known as osmoreceptors. So these receptors will respond to the fluctuations in the osmotic pressure. So whenever there is a change in the blood volume or the body fluid volume, or the concentration of ions take place, that will activate the osmoreceptors in our body. So regulation of kidney function is brought about by a feedback mechanism involving hormones. In 10th standard, you have learned a feedback mechanism working. Like when the hormones need to be released, then it will be released, and once the condition gets back to normal, again there is a feedback mechanism working which will stop the release of this hormones further. Hope you are remembering all that. With respect to insulin and all, in, I think class 10 you have learned, and in the previous chapter also we have discussed about the same. So it is done by the regulation of kidney function is carried out by a hormonal feedback mechanism. It involves three structures: hypothalamus, JGA, and heart. And whenever there is a fluctuation in the osmotic pressure brought about by change in the volume of blood, body fluid volume, or ionic concentration, the osmotic receptors present in our body will get activated. Now let's see the regulation by ADH, antidiuretic hormone. ADH, antidiuretic hormone. Do you know what is diuresis, children? Antidiuretic hormone means which will prevent diuresis. What is diuresis? Loss of
Water through urine.
water from the body. So that is known as diuresis. So antidiuretic hormone, this will prevent the loss of water from our body. When the body fluid level decreases, I told you in the previous slide that whenever there is a fluctuation in the body fluid volume, blood volume, or in such cases, the osmotic receptors in your body, osmoreceptors in our body will get activated. And when there is a reduction in the body fluid, the osmoreceptors will be activated and they will stimulate hypothalamus. And when hypothalamus is stimulated, it will release the hormone. You call it as antidiuretic hormone. It is one more name, vasopressin. Vasopressin and antidiuretic hormone, both are same. They reduce the loss of water from the body. It will prevent diuresis by facilitating reabsorption of water. See, when the osmoreceptors are getting stimulated, when the body fluid, when the level of water or when the body fluid level is diminishing, so you need water, you need more amount of water to maintain the normal level. So in such a case, the hypothalamus will get stimulated by the osmoreceptors. They release antidiuretic hormone. Once this hormone is released, its role is to reduce the loss of water from our body because it is an antidiuretic hormone. So how the water loss can be prevented? By promoting reabsorption of water. So they will facilitate the reabsorption of water from distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct, which will help in maintaining the normal body fluid volume. Got it, children? Regulation of kidney functions by antidiuretic hormone. Whenever there is a decrease in the level body fluid volume, osmoreceptors, I told whenever there is a fluctuation in the volume of blood, body fluids, etc., your osmoreceptors will get stimulated. And when the body fluid is diminishing, when its level is going down, the osmoreceptors will get activated and they stimulate hypothalamus. Hypothalamus will release antidiuretic hormone that will prevent the loss of water from our body, promoting the reabsorption of water from distal convoluted tubule and collecting tubule. Okay. Now let's see what will happen. So in the beginning, I told you a hormonal feedback mechanism. Now when the body fluid volume increases, antidiuretic hormone was released to bring back, when the body fluid level was going down, to bring it back to the normal level, this hormone was released. So as a result of the hormone being released, the water reabsorption will be facilitated, body fluid will start increasing. And when the body fluid volume increases, then the osmoreceptors will get, they will be sensed over, they'll get the information, they'll be switching off. Okay, they got activated. When the body fluid volume went down, got decreased, they got activated. But when the body fluid volume increases, they'll switch off, or they'll get turned off. And as a result, ADH release also will be stopped and the feedback is completed. Again, when the body fluid level goes down, the same processes will happen. Osmoreceptors will be activated. They will stimulate hypothalamus. Hypothalamus will release ADH and water reabsorption will be promoted. Body fluid volume increases. Once it is increased, this is sensed by the osmoreceptors. They'll switch off. So antidiuretic hormones released by the hypothalamus will stop, and this completes the feedback. ADH will constrict the blood vessel, resulting in an increase of blood pressure. This increases the glomerular blood flow and glomerular filtration rate. So antidiuretic hormone. So antidiuretic hormone, they'll bring about constriction of blood vessel. So you know that when the width of the blood vessel is getting reduced, the pressure will be more. Once the blood pressure is more, the glomerular blood flow will be more. And you know how the glomerular filtration, when we discussed about glomerulus or glomerular filtration, I told you that it is due to the pressure in the glomerular capillaries that the filtration is taking place. So the better the pressure, better will be the rate of glomerular filtration. So ADH, antidiuretic hormone, they will constrict the blood vessel, increases the blood pressure, and when the blood pressure is increased, the blood flow through the glomerulus also will increase. So there will be better rate of filtration of blood through glomerulus. Next is regulation by JGA. So we have completed the regulation brought about by antidiuretic hormone. The regulation of kidney function by JGA, juxtaglomerular apparatus. So juxtaglomerular apparatus is formed by the cellular modification of cells in the region where the efferent arteriole meets the distal convoluted tubule. So there the cells will undergo modification and they form a special sensitive region, that is juxtaglomerular apparatus. And they will regulate. So they also play a very important role in maintaining or regulating glomerular filtration rate by renin-angiotensin mechanism. Juxtaglomerular apparatus regulates GFR, glomerular filtration rate. How? By means of renin-angiotensin mechanism. Renin is the enzyme which is, it's a hormone released by juxtaglomerular apparatus. And it brings about, or with the help of this renin hormone, it carries out a renin-angiotensin mechanism. Let's see how it is working. When there is a reduction in the glomerular blood flow, when sufficient blood is not passing through the glomerulus, definitely the GFR or glomerular filtration rate will be less. So glomerular blood flow is less means the blood pressure is low, GFR is low. So this will activate when the glomerular filtration rate goes below the normal. This cells, that is juxtaglomerular apparatus, will get activated. They will release the hormone renin. Okay. And what this renin will do? Renin will convert a substance known as angiotensinogen in blood. So in blood, angiotensinogen is present. So in presence of renin, angiotensinogen will get converted to angiotensin 1. Then later it will be converted to angiotensin 2. And angiotensin 2 is a vasoconstrictor. Vasoconstrictor means something which make the blood vessel to get constricted. Not dilation, opposite of dilation, blood vessel constrict. So when the blood vessel becomes constricted, the passage becomes narrow, pressure increases. If pressure is increasing, glomerular filtration rate will increase. Are you getting the point? No. Are you getting the point, children?
No, ma'am.
Wait. I'll repeat it again. Second mechanism only, no? Second one only, no, guys.
ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
You understood what is juxtaglomerular apparatus. We already learned about that. Okay. It's the structure or a special sensitive area formed where the distal convoluted tubule joins or comes in contact with the afferent arteriole. So that region. So there some cellular modification takes place, as you can see in the picture, and you call it as JGA. And JG is having endocrine function because it produces the hormone renin. That also have you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now just assume that glomerular filtration rate goes low. There should be a optimum or moderate level of glomerular filtration rate. Glomerular filtration rate means the amount of blood getting filtered through as it passes through the glomerulus per minute. That becomes low. That is because the pressure is low. When pressure is low, GFR becomes low. Okay. So when there is a fall in the glomerular blood flow. So when the pressure is less, sufficient blood flow won't be there through the glomerulus. If sufficient blood is not flowing through the glomerulus, definitely the filtration rate will be less. So there should be sufficient blood flow to facilitate better glomerular filtration rate. Okay. So the glomerular filtration rate is going down. So that time, the juxtaglomerular cells will get activated. They'll respond to fall in GFR and they will release the hormone renin. This much have you understood? When
Yes, ma'am.
GFR goes low, JGA will get activated. They'll respond. They'll sense that and they'll respond by releasing renin. And what renin will do, there is a protein which is present in your blood. You call it as angiotensinogen. That is in the inactive form. But renin will act on it and convert it into angiotensin 1. Later, it will get converted to angiotensin 2. See, angiotensinogen. Angiotensinogen will be converted to, angiotensinogen is in active form. Angiotensin 1, then angiotensin 2. So this is brought about by our renin. Okay. And this angiotensin 2 is a vasoconstrictor. Vaso is something related to your circulatory system, vascular system. Vasoconstriction means, see, this is dilation. When your blood vessel becomes broader, that is dilation. When it becomes narrow, you call it as constriction. Okay, it's a vasoconstrictor means it makes the blood vessels to become narrow. It makes a blood vessel to get constricted. Dilate means the opposite. So when the blood vessel is becoming narrow, what will happen to the pressure there, Gayatri?
Pressure increases.
Increases. The more the pressure, the better will be the GFR.
Yes, ma'am.
Glomerular fit. See, when the pressure increases, more flow of blood to the glomerulus, so better GFR. Angiotensin 2 increases the blood pressure, therefore GFR also will increase. And Along with this, angiotensin 2 not only increases the glomerular blood flow and the glomerular filtration rate. It also enables or it also activates adrenal cortex. Adrenal cortex and adrenal medulla we had learned in the chapter about endocrine glands and hormones. So they will release aldosterone. So angiotensin 2 will first of all increase GFR, and at the same time it will promote the release of a substance known as aldosterone. And aldosterone will facilitate reabsorption of sodium and water from the distal convoluted tubule. That also will help in increasing blood pressure and GFR. I'll quickly say both the points once again. Regulation brought about by JGA. So those who haven't understood, please listen once again. With this, we will wind up. Juxtaglomerular apparatus is a special sensitive region formed by cellular modification where the distal convoluted tubule meets the afferent arteriole. It's having endocrine function. It is capable of producing a substance known as renin, hormone known as renin. Okay. And whenever the GFR or the glomerular blood flow or blood pressure or GFR falls, decreases, this JGA will get activated. Upon activation, what they do, their duty is to bring it back to the normal level. For that, they will release a hormone. The hormone's name is renin. And what is renin's role? An inactive substance, angiotensinogen, is present in our blood. And this will be converted to angiotensin 1 and later to angiotensin 2 by our renin. And angiotensin 2 is a vasoconstrictor. It makes the blood vessel to get constricted, increasing the blood pressure. When the blood pressure increases, definitely GFR also will increase, which will bring the GFR to the normal rate. Okay. But extra also happens means in addition to this, our angiotensin 2 also stimulates adrenal cortex to release which one? Aldosterone. It will promote the release of aldosterone from adrenal cortex. And what is the role of aldosterone? Aldosterone will facilitate reabsorption of sodium and water. And when sodium and water is reabsorbed from the distal tubule, it will promote increase in blood pressure and GFR also will be increased. So it is bringing about, renin is bringing about increase in glomerular filtration rate in two ways. First of all, it will help in converting angiotensinogen into angiotensin 2. And this angiotensin 2 will facilitate or will increase the glomerular blood pressure and increases GFR. And angiotensin 2 will also release or will also promote the release of aldosterone from adrenal cortex. And once aldosterone is released, they'll facilitate the reabsorption of sodium and water. That will also increase the blood pressure and GFR. So in two ways, the GFR will be brought back to the normal by means of JGA, by means of the hormone released by JGA. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Shall we wind up? Any doubt means I'll clarify. See the number, just 8 are there. See you next class. Thank you.